Dawn crept softly into Carol Peterson's home, brushing pale gold across the walls as she moved through the kitchen with the slow grace of someone who had learned to live gently with her memories. At 68, her mornings felt like old songs, familiar, tender, and a little bit broken at the edges. She placed her teacup on the table, opposite a chair that had not been pulled out in years. A quiet ache lived there, an ache she no longer spoke about. The house was still, too still. The kind of stillness that comes after a lifetime of noise has slowly faded away. Her eyes drifted toward the piano in the corner, its cover closed like a secret. Something white peeked out from beneath the lid. With trembling fingers, she lifted it. A yellowing audition flyer. The same one she thought she had thrown away. But life, it seemed, wasn't done with her story. Mornings in Evelyn Callahan's life always began the same way. Quietly, gently, as though she were afraid to disturb the memories resting around her. She rose before the sun, her feet finding the familiar path across the wooden floor of her small apartment. The kettle was old, a little dented at the side, but it whistled faithfully every morning. She liked that sound, the soft promise of warmth. She poured herself a cup of tea, its steam weaving upward in delicate ribbons. She always held the cup with both hands, as though cradling something fragile. The aroma of cardamom and faint jasmine carried her backward in time, to a version of herself who once dreamed fearlessly. The radio on her kitchen shelf crackled to life as she turned the dial. No music, no loud shows, just the soft hum of an old host reading headlines with a slow, reassuring calm. Evelyn preferred voices like that, voices that didn't rush her, voices that didn't expect anything from her. At the edge of the table, a collection of old photographs sat tucked beneath a glass covering. She never moved them. A younger Evelyn smiling in a graduation gown she never got to wear. Her parents proud, unaware of how quickly life would change. A picture of her first tiny apartment when she'd once believed the future was hers to shape. She would pause there, every morning, letting her fingers rest on the corner of a photo. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes her eyes softened with a sadness she never spoke aloud. These photographs were more than memories. They were chapters she had left unfinished. Her routine was simple. Tea, radio, gentle silence. But within that silence lived stories. Ones she carried quietly, ones nobody asked about. The world outside moved quickly, but Evelyn's life moved like an old song, steady and soft. Before leaving for class, she neatly packed her worn leather notebook, the same one she'd carried decades earlier. Its edges were frayed, its spine tired, yet it remained loyal, a witness to all her abandoned dreams. Locking her door, she exhaled slowly. Every morning walk to the university felt like stepping into a world that didn't expect her, didn't understand her, and sometimes didn't want her. Students brushed past with easy confidence, unaware of the weight she carried in her quiet footsteps. But Evelyn kept walking, because beneath her gentle routine, a fire had been waiting, a brilliance she had never stopped nurturing, a story ready to awaken. Evelyn's world had always been small, carefully contained, predictable, safe. But returning to the university introduced new faces, unexpected kindnesses, and gentle disruptions she didn't know she needed. The first was her neighbor, Mrs. Whitfield, a retired librarian who lived across the hall. Every morning, she peeked out through her slightly open door as Evelyn left for class. "Off to your big university again?" she'd say with a proud smile. Evelyn would nod, adjusting her bag. "Trying my best." Mrs. Whitfield always responded the same way, tapping her cane lightly on the floor. "Books never forget their readers, dear. Neither do dreams. Keep going." It was such a simple sentence, but it warmed the quiet corners of Evelyn's heart. Then there was her younger cousin, Mia, a vibrant 20-year-old studying graphic design. She called Evelyn almost every evening, excitedly asking about her classes. "How was calculus today?" Evelyn often laughed softly. "Challenging." "Good," Mia would reply. "Challenging means you're growing, and you've done hard things your whole life. This one's yours." Their conversations reminded Evelyn that even though the world had changed around her, She wasn't navigating it alone. But the most unexpected presence came from a stranger, Dr. Harriet Powell, whom Evelyn met in the mathematics library. Her voice was warm, her eyes curious, and unlike others, she didn't look at Evelyn with doubt or surprise. "You have the mind of a mathematician," Harriet said gently one afternoon, noting the advanced text Evelyn was reading. "No," Evelyn whispered, lowering her gaze. "I just love the subject." Harriet smiled knowingly. People who truly love it often understand it better than those who merely study it. Each of these individuals, neighbor, family, stranger, added small but powerful shifts to Evelyn's life. A bit of warmth here, a nudge of encouragement there, a spark of belief she didn't yet have in herself. Slowly, without her realizing it, the world around her was opening, inviting her to take up space again. Tone. Slow rise, soft shock, tear-pulling, sentimental. Theme. Something small, but emotionally massive. Days continued to pass in their quiet, predictable rhythm, until one afternoon, something changed. It happened not with noise, but with a soft, almost accidental moment. The kind of moment life gives only once, as if testing whether the heart is still capable of feeling. It was late evening, the sun gently sinking behind the old trees, painting the room in soft gold. They were cleaning a drawer they had ignored for years. Old receipts, buttons, faded bills, nothing important. Just forgotten pieces of an ordinary life. But then, hidden under a pile of papers, they found a small photograph. Time had washed its colors, but the faces remained clear. Two people smiling, standing close. Back when love was simple and hearts were unbroken. Back when a single smile could erase every worry. Their hands trembled as they held the photograph, tracing the edges like touching a wound that never healed. The air changed, suddenly heavier, suddenly full of memories they thought they had buried. And then, something else slipped out from behind the photo. A folded paper, yellowed at the edges, soft from years of waiting. It was a letter, one they had never opened. Their heart skipped, their breath caught. Letters from the past have a strange power. They don't just carry ink, they carry emotions frozen in time. With trembling fingers, they unfolded it. The handwriting familiar, the date, from the very week everything had fallen apart. Their eyes moved slowly over the words, each line piercing deeper than the last. "I know you're angry. I know you won't listen right now. But I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you. If you ever read this, just know, I was waiting for you too." A tear dropped onto the paper, blurring the ink. This letter, this one simple letter, held everything they had longed to hear for years. Apologies, explanations, feelings that were never spoken face to face. And suddenly, the past didn't feel distant anymore. It felt close, raw, alive. The room around them disappeared. All they could see were memories rushing back. The day they stopped talking. The moment pride won over love. The silence that grew and grew until it swallowed everything. Why hadn't they opened this letter earlier? Why had they let ego or fear close the door on a heart trying to reach them? Their chest tightened with regret so sharp it felt physical. But the turning point wasn't just the letter. It was what they felt after reading it. A warmth, a pull, a small voice inside whispering, "It's not too late." For the first time in years, they felt the urge to reach out, to speak, to fix what time had only made worse. That photograph, that letter, they didn't just open old memories. They opened the heart that had been locked away for too long. And at that moment, something inside them finally rose. A mixture of pain and hope, of tears and courage. The story had begun to move again. Night had settled gently over the town, its silence as deep as the ache in Carol's chest. She stood outside the old concert hall, the place she had avoided for decades, her breath visible in the cold air. The building still carried the faint smell of polished wood and memories she thought she had locked away forever. Inside, the hall was nearly empty, the faint echoes of a rehearsal fading into the rafters. She stepped in slowly, her cane tapping softly against the marble floor. Each step felt like walking back into a life she had abandoned. And then she saw him, Samuel Hart, the maestro, the man who once made her feel like music itself, and later made her feel like she didn't belong. Now older, his hair grayed, shoulders slightly bent. Not from age, but from years of carrying unspoken words. He looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, time froze. Not the poetic kind of freeze, but the painful one. When two people who were once everything to each other suddenly become strangers standing in the ruins of their own choices. Samuel spoke first, his voice cracking in a way she had never heard before. "Carol, I didn't think I'd ever see you again." She swallowed hard. Her fingers tightened around the old letter in her hand. The same letter that had brought her here. The same letter she had never opened. "I found this," she whispered, holding it up. Samuel's eyes widened, shock, guilt, longing, all mixing together. He took a shaky step toward her. "I wrote that the night before your audition," he said softly. "When you left rehearsal in tears, I wanted to tell you the truth. I wanted to tell you why I pushed you so hard." Her voice trembled. "You humiliated me, Samuel, in front of everyone. I thought you hated my music. And me." He closed his eyes slowly, as if the memory itself hurt. "I never hated you, Carol. I was hard on you because you reminded me of myself. Because you had something rare. Something I wanted to protect." A tear slipped down Carol's cheek, though she tried to hide it. "And the audition?" she whispered. "I waited for your approval for weeks. I thought your silence meant I wasn't good enough." Samuel shook his head, pain tightening his jaw. "My silence wasn't rejection. It was punishment, but not for you." He took a trembling breath. "It was for myself." Carol's voice cracked. "I don't understand." Samuel opened his eyes, wet, heavy, filled with grief. "That night," he said, "I was supposed to tell you everything, that I believed in you, that I saw a future in your voice. He stopped. The next words seemed to break inside him. "But when I went to deliver the letter, I saw you leaving the hall, crying. I saw your hands shaking, and I realized I had already ruined everything." Carol felt her heart tighten painfully. "Then why didn't you reach out?" she whispered. "Why didn't you call? Why didn't you try?" Samuel's voice lowered to a fragile whisper. "Because I thought you deserved better than me. And every day that passed, I became more certain that reaching out would only hurt you again." The hall felt unbearably silent. Only their breaths filled the space. Uneven, emotional, fragile. Carol stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Samuel, all these years, all that pain, it was a misunderstanding?" He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "I kept your music," he said. "Every sheet you ever struggled with. Every practice recording. I kept them all." A small, broken smile. "Because even when you were gone, your music stayed with me." Carol felt something inside her shatter, the kind of heartbreak that doesn't hurt loudly, but quietly, like a soft tear in the soul. She whispered, "I thought I wasn't enough." He whispered back, "You were the only one." For a long moment, neither moved. They just stood in the quiet glow of the dim hall, two aging hearts finally standing face to face with the truth they had run from all their lives. And then, gently, painfully, as if holding something fragile, Samuel placed a small velvet box in her hand. "This," he whispered, "was meant for the night of your audition." Carol opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a tiny gold music note pendant, the symbol of the dream she had once carried in her heart. Her breath broke. A soft, helpless sob escaped her. And Samuel, with a voice full of years of regret, whispered, "I never meant to lose you, Carol. I just didn't know how to keep you." The air inside the concert hall felt different now, heavier, but strangely clearer. Carol didn't know how long she had been standing there, the tiny gold pendant resting delicately in her palm. It felt warm, almost alive, as if it carried every unsaid word between them. Her chest rose and fell in slow, unsteady breaths. She wasn't crying loudly, just the quiet kind of tears that drift down without permission, the kind that don't ask for attention but say everything the heart can't. Samuel stood a few steps away, not speaking, not moving, afraid that even a whisper might shatter whatever fragile peace had just formed between them. Carol finally sank onto one of the old wooden seats, the same kind she once sat in as a young woman full of dreams. But today the seat felt different, softer, older, like it had been waiting for her too. She looked around the hall, the faded curtains, the dusty stage lights, the silent piano in the corner. For years, this place had been a symbol of pain. Now it felt like a quiet witness to a story that had never been allowed to finish. Her voice was barely above a breath. All these years, I carried the wrong truth. Samuel lowered his head, guilt pressing into his shoulders. And I let you. Carol pressed the pendant to her heart. Not for dramatic effect, but because she felt something stir inside her. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. And understanding is the first soft step toward healing. She inhaled gently, letting the weight of the years settle. Every memory seemed to return at once. The laughter, the arguments, the rehearsals, the silence that followed. But now they hurt differently. Not like open wounds, but like old scars finally allowed to breathe. The world outside the hall seemed quieter than before. The night air, the passing cars, even the footsteps in the corridor felt muted, as if the universe itself was slowing down so her heart could catch up. Samuel sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't try to speak. He simply sat, quietly, humbly, like a man who finally understood the price of silence. Carol closed her eyes for a moment. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the years. But something inside her shifted, gently, painfully, beautifully. The truth had broken her, but it had also begun to set her free. The next morning arrived quietly, slipping into Carol's home like a soft whisper. No dramatic sunrise, no golden light, just a calm, gray dawn that felt honest, steady, and gentle. The kind of morning that doesn't ask anything from you. It simply lets you exist. Carol moved slowly through the house, her footsteps soft against the familiar wooden floor. Nothing had changed around her, yet everything felt different. The truth from the night before still lived inside her chest, but it wasn't sharp now. It was warm, heavy, but warm. On the kitchen table sat the small gold pendant, cleaned, polished, glowing softly. It looked like a memory finally allowed to breathe. Carol picked it up, running her thumb across its surface. For years she had carried pain like armor, but now, that weight had shifted. It no longer felt like a burden, just a part of her story. She walked to the window and gently pushed it open. The morning air drifted in cool, fresh, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. She let the breeze touch her face, closing her eyes for a long moment, breathing in, breathing out, letting go just a little. On the shelf near the window stood a framed photograph, one she had turned face down years ago. Her younger self, Samuel, the old music hall, smiling like they had forever ahead of them. Her hand hesitated above the frame, not because it hurt too much, but because it didn't hurt in the same way anymore. Slowly, gently, she lifted the frame and turned it upright again. The glass caught the morning light, making the picture glow softly, like an old melody finding its way back to the surface. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply accepted it. Life does not return to what it was, but sometimes it finds a quiet place to rest. Carol placed the pendant beside the photograph, not as a symbol of reunion, but of understanding. Two small things holding years of unsaid emotions, now allowed to stay without breaking her. Then, with steady hands, she folded the soft gray sweater she had been wearing the night before and placed it neatly inside the drawer. A simple action, but symbolic, like closing the final page of a chapter she had carried for too long. She stood there for a moment, feeling the stillness settle around her. Not happiness, not sorrow, just peace. The kind of peace that comes only after years of holding your breath and finally learning how to exhale. In the quiet years of life, when the world finally slows down and the noise fades, one truth becomes painfully clear. Time is not something we lose all at once. It slips away in small moments, moments we believed were too ordinary to matter. But looking back, we realize those small moments were life. The simple conversations, the warm cups of evening tea, the hands we held without thinking, the apologies we postponed for tomorrow. Years later, we learn that tomorrow is never promised in the way we imagined. Forgiveness, it doesn't erase the past. It doesn't fix what time has scattered, but it makes the heart lighter. And at this age, a light heart is worth more than pride, more than being right, more than winning old arguments. Memories also change. In youth, we chase new ones. In age, we protect the ones we have left, holding them like fragile treasures. Some memories warm us, some break us, but all of them remind us that we lived, we loved, we tried. And family, whether by blood or by bond, is never perfect. But it is the one thread we keep pulling, again and again, hoping it leads us back to someone who once meant everything. The greatest lesson? Presence. Just being there, sitting beside someone, even in silence, carries more healing than 1,000 speeches. In the end, life teaches us gently but firmly that love was always the real measure of time, and that it's never too late to soften, to reach out, to begin again. Even if all we can offer is a quiet, "I'm still here." In the quiet twilight of her life, she finally understood that the heart doesn't break from the things we lost, but from the moments we were too afraid to hold. And as she gently closed the door on yesterday, she whispered to the years behind her, "I remember you, I forgive you, and I'm ready to breathe again."
In the quiet twilight of her life, she finally understood that the heart doesn't break from the things we lost, but from the moments we were too afraid to hold. And as she gently closed the door on yesterday, she whispered to the years behind her, "I remember you, I forgive you, and I'm ready to breathe again."